are you? Hope you're having a great week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Who Gives a Dram. We're here today. This is Tuesday, February 21st. Recording this a few days in advance to get this out, but I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank you guys for tuning in this week and for joining me on this whiskey review today. And I don't have a particular reason why I'm reviewing the whiskey that I'm reviewing today. I was looking through my whiskey cabinet and I thought, I haven't done Dickel yet, and it might be fun to do that. So today we're going to be reviewing George Dickel Tennessee Bottled in Bond Whiskey. It's 13 years old. Not a bourbon, because just like its other Tennessee whiskey counterpart, Jack Daniels, they legally cannot call their whiskey bourbon because of the charcoal filtering system that they implement during the whiskey making process. Is that a very hot topic of discussion in the whiskey world, and do a lot of people disagree with that? Yeah. Is it basically bourbon? Yeah. Does it have all the same quantities as bourbon legally? Yes. But here we are. Can't call it bourbon because of the rules. And you know what? Rules are a good thing. Without rules, we wouldn't be any better than like those Planet of the Apes movies. The ones with, not the one with Mark Wahlberg, the one with James Franco. Thank you for joining me today. Gonna try a new little style. We're just gonna do a whiskey review today. That's on this podcast. We're just gonna do a whiskey review. I do have some thoughts on some fights coming up, some fights that happened, and some movies. But I am going to save that for later in the week in a new segment that I'm going to be calling, or testing out at least this week, Fights and Flicks, where I'm going to talk about my fights and my movies and TV shows that I'm watching, and it's going to be another 20 to 30-minute segment that I'm going to release on Wednesdays or Thursdays. But the beginning of the week is going to be strictly whiskey reviews. Who Gives a Dram was started on the basis of reviewing whiskey, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to review whiskey today, and that's it. So before we get into it, make sure you're following along with our journey at Who Gives a Dram, at Who Gives a Dram on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Make sure you're subscribed if you're listening to this. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube if you're watching the review video. Without further ado, let's drink some Dickel. So a little bit about George Dickel, right? Again, this is a Tennessee whiskey, not a bourbon because of that charcoal filtering process that Tennessee whiskey implements. And honestly, George Dickel is kind of at the butt of a lot of different jokes that I can see throughout the whiskey community. And from what I see, Dickel has a lot of the time has kind of been disregarded as a inferior whiskey, not because of its Tennessee roots, but simply because it's not very good. My personal history with George Dickel is not very comprehensive. I bought this 13-year back in 2021, I believe, or maybe the beginning of 2022, and I remember exactly where I bought it. In a town in Rhode Island, and it was on the bottom shelf for like $22. This bottle right here is the best deal I've ever gotten in whiskey, over everything. Any of the Buffalo Trace products, any of the Wild Turkey products, Heaven Hill products. It's been George Dickel. I think I paid at the very most $25 for this. I ripped the price tag off, so I can't confirm. Yeah, it was right there. I can't confirm exactly what the price was, but and I was by myself, so I can't even have anyone else back me up. But I was like at the very, very, very most $25 I paid for this. Just going off the George Dickel website, this is clocking in at 100 proof. It's bottled and bond, and one of the requirements for bottled and bond is 50% alcohol by volume, or for us Americans, 100 proof. The mash bill consists of 84% corn, 8% rye, and 8% malted barley. So, in terms of a mash bill, this is right up my wheelhouse. This is something that this is a at least a mash bill that I thoroughly enjoy. I enjoy high corn content whiskeys, whether they're bourbons, whether they're Tennessee whiskeys, or whether they're straight corn whiskeys. I like high content corn. I think it gives a really nice grainy sweetness that I always enjoy. Um, just to just to name off some of the awards based on the George Dickel website that this whiskey has won. Distilling season fall 2005, aged 13 years. 2019 San Francisco World Spirits Competition Gold. 2019 number one Whiskey Advocate, 94 score. 2019 Wine Enthusiast, 95 score. Distilling season fall 2008, age 11 years. So this is a different iteration. 2021 Ultimate Spirits Challenge, excellent, highly recommend, 94 score. 2021 San Francisco World Spirits Competition, double gold. Distilling season spring 2007, age 13 years. So that would be this one. And this was 2022 San Francisco World Spirits Competition, double gold. So it has the awards to back it up. It has the name. It has the proof. It has the mash bill. Let's see if it's actually good. Let's see if the common man thinks it's good. Yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about the actual Dickel operation, where they're getting their juice from, if it's sourced, I think it's distilled on site. It says on the bottle here, distilled and aged by Cascade Hollow Whiskey Company in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and bottled in Plainfield, Illinois. Interesting thing about this bottle, it has serving facts on it. Serving size, 1.5 fluid ounces, 44 milliliters. Servings per container, 17. So that means there are 17 1.5 ounce pours exactly in this bottle of 750 milliliters. Amount per serving, alcohol by volume, 50%. Fluid ounces of alcohol, 0.8. Calories, 120. Carbohydrates, 0 grams. Fat, 0 grams. Protein, 0 grams. I've never seen that on a whiskey before, where they actually give the nutritional facts. Seems really dumb because obviously there's no carbs, fat, or proteins in this, but you know, it is what it is. One thing I do like about this is George Dickel, Bottled and Bond. Come for the moonlight, stay for the whiskey. George would want you to. I like that a lot. Bonded under law. The Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 is an old law, but it's an important one to know. To be considered bonded, the whiskey must be from a single distillation season and distillery. It must be aged for at least 4 years, and it must be unaltered from its original character, except using pure water to reduce proof to 100 degrees. This batch of George Dickel you're holding abides by this law. If you have any doubts, just give us a call. We'll vouch for it personally. Obviously you will, but whatever. Distilling season, spring 2007. In 1870, George A. Dickel began the journey leading to the creation of the best Tennessee whiskey around. George discovered that his whiskey made in the cold winter months tasted smoother. Today, we follow this tradition by chilling our whiskey before filtering it through sugar maple charcoal. It's exactly why it is not a bourbon, for that exact process of filtering it through sugar maple charcoal, same thing that Jack Daniels does. We think our unique chilled filtration process makes a fine whiskey. Hope you agree. This Bottled and Bond release is one of a kind, sourced from barrels laid down during a single distilling season and selected at peak maturity for a taste that's unique, complex, and bold, kind of like the people who made it. So modest. Yeah, it's got all the hype. I want to see if George Dickel is sourced. Like what the deal is with. Is George Dickel sourced? I wish I had a producer who I could just hey, Google this for me, Jamie. Let's see. Is George Dickel a MGP? George Dickel Rye is distilled at the MGP distillery. So that's 95.5 rye. Yeah, it's going to take me a second to find. I don't think that. Yeah. I mean, who cares if it's sourced or not? To be honest, people who make a big deal about whiskey being sourced still, after all the great sourced whiskey that's out there, is just it doesn't make a difference. If the whiskey is good, the whiskey is good. All right, so we're just gonna pop this now. I haven't opened this in a while, so I should probably get the cork a little wet. Terrible cork pop. Fake cork. Red flag. Just a little bit. Your boy has had an upset stomach, so I haven't eaten much today. So this probably isn't the best thing to do if review whiskey, but we're going to do it because that's our job. Matter of fact, I do enjoy the actual George Dickel bottle. It's just old school, heavy. Seems like I could throw this across the room and it would not break. I could use this as a weapon, maybe a small katana, maybe a little bit of like a sledgehammer. I feel like maybe I could hammer in a nail with this George Dickel bottle. It feels right in my hands. It feels like I could use this as a weapon. It feels like I could use this to end somebody's life if I had to, or defend my own life. That's probably a better way to put it for legal purposes. And it looks like I could, make this into a nice vase or maybe a lamp. It's a nice bottle, nice and sturdy. Again, looks good in your hands. And it complements my toe thumbs well because it's kind of fat like my thumbs. So that's my bottle review of this. And we don't do the color because who gives a shit about the color? It looks like whiskey. And that's that there. But we're going to give it a sniff. We're going to see how it smells. Okay, yeah. So this just smells like a high corn whiskey. I get that I get a bit of like a honey cherry right off the bat there. That grain comes forward a bit more the harder you sniff it. If it smells like a finished whiskey, honestly, it just smells like it could be finished in some type of wine barrel, like a port or not a sherry. It's too dark to be a sherry, or like a Pedro Jimenez. It seems like it could be like a tawny port finish. But the grain really comes out nice. I'm getting a bit of like a more dessert note on this, like again, honey. I just had the other night, I had some griddled cornbread with honey drizzled over the top. Kinda smells like this. But not as, like, this smells worse. Doesn't smell as good as that griddled cornbread with honey drizzled over that. And I had that as an appetizer before dinner. How crazy is that? I get a little bit of a darker, dry oak as well, which is to be expected. This had been sitting in a barrel for 13 years. It was barreled in 2007, in the spring of 2007. In the spring of 2007, I was freshly 10 years old. So this whiskey was barreled when I was 10, and it was bottled in 2021. So we'll say in the spring of 2021, where I was 25. No, that doesn't make sense. It's aged 13 years, so I was 23, just about 24 years old. It's kind of cool when you put whiskey into that perspective of how long some of it sits in a barrel. And the fact that they're putting an age statement on this is much appreciated by me because I do like to know how old my whiskey is. Yeah, it just kind of smells like I don't really get the age on this. Really, with any type of especially high corn whiskey that's over 10 years old, especially creeping up to 13 to 15 years old, there's typically a note of like really intense wood, like a dark seasoned oak or something like that. This has the oak on it, but it's not as present as it is in other. For example, Old Fitzgerald has that. That's a wheated bourbon, so it's a little bit different, but it's got that real intense wet, like not wet, dry seasoned oak to it. Whereas this, you can smell the oak, but it's a bit newer, fresher. And then yeah, I get some dark cherry honey flavors on this, a bit like griddled honey cornbread. And there's something else I'm getting. I just can't put my nose on it. I don't know. This smells like it's gonna give me a hangover. Let's drink it. Cheers to another week, another whiskey review. George Dickel, 13-year bottled in Bond Tennessee Whiskey. Let's drink it. Nutty. Very nutty on the beginning of the palate there. Interesting. Not much of a finish. I got a bit more vanilla on the back, but the front was all like 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 almonds. I tasted like like one of those Planters assorted nuts, lightly salted, like party mixes. Not the biggest fan of that. Hmm. Yeah, I get a bit more oak. It's a bit tannic on this, meaning it's a little bit sour. I don't really get that fruit cherry on this. I definitely don't get any honey. This kind of just tastes like a nutty oaky whiskey. There's not that much else going on, and excuse me, in terms of the actual tasting notes here. Man, I'm gonna start burping now. The oak is 100% there. There's a hint of a sweetness, and I want to say it's more of like a tobacco sweetness, like that dry aged cigar wrapper type of like initial sweetness that you'll get with a cigar, um, or with the tobacco, I should say. But it doesn't stay there for very long. It's quickly influenced by the oak, and then pushed forward by a more nutty profile from what I can taste. It almost tastes a little burnt as well. This tastes like a burnt nut. That's what they called me in high school. um, yeah, not my favorite. It's actually not terrible. It's really not as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. um, the positives of this are 100% the fact that there is a a an age statement on the bottle. 13 years, it's age stated. It's good. I like that a lot. So you know exactly what you're getting. A very clear mash bill according to the website. They list it all right there. It's more of a transparent whiskey. I always like to see that. And this is a larger brand, so the larger the brand, the more transparent they are, the better. Now, there's a lot of iterations of George Dickel. I will never buy another one. Like any of the 8 years or any of the other ones. I only bought this because it was bottled in Bond, because I'd seen it online, and because it was like $25. I want to say this at the very least will run you $49.99 from what I can see. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm going to gauge the price at for when I give this a score. Yeah, the nuttiness comes through a bit. It does have a little bit of like a more of like a burnt honey, not burnt, like a I guess like a butterscotch almost. The honey was a bit more, the sweetness was a bit more vibrant on the nose, and it turns into a bit darker on the palate, which I feel like is the case for most whiskeys. But overall, this isn't a bad whiskey. It's just not a great whiskey, and I would buy this all the time at $25. I think that's a steal. I am very, very confident that the liquor store that I bought this bottle from in Rhode Island priced this very wrong, and I just happened to be lucky that day and walk away with a bottle of this. I remember walking into that store, not even thinking of buying a bottle, just seeing what was on there, and just being like, all right, if there's anything that's crazy good priced or something that's super rare that I won't find, I'll buy it. And this happened to be there, this George Dickel. So overall, for what I paid for this is great. But for what the average person will pay, it's okay. Wouldn't blame me if you skipped it, but also if you were a big Jim Beam fan, this might be up your alley because of that nutty profile. Otherwise, you probably are okay to skip this. If you're not a Jim Beam fan, you probably won't like this a whole lot. I'm gonna give this, for my palate, I'm gonna give this like a 7.4. Like, it's something that I'm glad I have and I will reach for, but it's not something that I'm gonna reach for consistently. Which should be proven by the fact that this was at the back of my whiskey cabinet and it's still got like half left, and it's been almost 2 years now since I've had the bottle. But for $25, it's a great price. So we'll do 7.4. George Dickel 13-year bottled in Bond Tennessee Whisky from spring 2007, released in 2021. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. It could be worse. It could be worse. So the Dickel hate, not as warranted as I think it should be, but people are going to like what they like. So thanks for tuning into this whiskey review this week, you guys. Catch me later in the week. We'll be talking about Ant-Man Quantumania. I'm going to review that movie for you guys. We're also going to talk about some fight news that's come up, including, most likely, Conor McGregor and the Volkanovski fight, and probably the upcoming John Jones fight and Jake Paul fights that are all happening very soon. So we'll touch on some of those topics later in the week. Make sure you guys are subscribed on your podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. I do a whiskey review mostly every week, and then I talk films and flicks every week as well. Again, my name's Connor. This is Who Gives a Dram, and always remember, whiskey's the water of life, so let's start living.